Be the Cake weekly inspiration with me, your host, Liz Campbell, coming to you live and direct here on Monday, the 25th of March. Okay, and it's really funny. Change in direction. Okay, so I've got these cards with me. These are for those of you who remember Doreen Virtue during her. I'm not going to call her glory days as such, but back in the heyday before she had her little moment. I'm just going to refer to it as her moment where she went evangelical and all these things. Okay, she had some awesome cards back when I first started doing this work. Basically, I did my certified angel card reader, and there was a whole bunch of different things I did in amongst all of my pursuing of certificates at the time. Like, I think everyone goes through this, right? The pursuing of certificates, and then you come to a place where your own sort of intuitive guidance starts to take over. That was certainly the case for me. I don't know why I'm saying this. I don't know why I'm sharing this today, but it just feels like it's a good idea. It's necessary. And essentially, I am going to use the cards here. Like, one of the things I want to say before I pull any cards is that it's important to understand, and I think this is really something that like needs to be kind of underlined and really kind of brought home, is that, and it's funny actually because it's sort of a variation on something I saw on a reel earlier where this guy was saying the universe always says yes, right? Okay, my take on this is that basically whatever you are focusing on, whatever you focus all of your attention and energy on, the universe, if you see the universe as being outside of yourself, I would actually argue you are the universe. But that's a whole other subject for possibly another time. I might get into that later. Okay. If you are focusing all of your time, energy, and attention on something, whatever it is, the universe takes that time, energy, attention, and your focus on it, and whatever the subject is, and goes, you're focusing all that time, energy, and attention on this thing. That must mean that you love it, because like surely that's what people do when they really love something or they love someone. They give them a lot of time, attention, and energy, right? So that must mean that you want more of that thing. This is like what I'm going to call the sort of Peter and Jane sort of explanation of how the law of abundance works. What you focus on expands, okay? And I really feel like this week it's really, 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 really important for you to understand that if you are not currently focusing on things that you genuinely love, and I do feel like this is the sort of like the crux point of this week's inspiration. If you are not at this current moment in time focusing on things that you genuinely love, you need to sit down and work out that you genuinely love. And it could be because you don't know what you love, in which case, isn't it about time that you sort of played around with a few things and found out? Okay. I'm not going to say fuck around and find out, but you could take it that way if you like. But essentially, playing around with things, seeing what does actually float your boat. Like, give yourself permission to test things, to try different things out, to test the waters of different experiences, to see which ones you actually enjoy and which ones you're a bit like, nah, whatever, I could, take or leave that, or oh god, I can't stand that, no, I don't want to do that again. Find out what it is that you actually prefer. Don't presume, I will say this as well, don't presume that just because you tried something in the past and you didn't like it, that you won't like it now. We do change as we grow, as we get older, and sometimes you can try something once and not like it. It's a bit like tasting food. she has always been quite a she's always had quite an interesting palette. My stepdaughter Lola, she's always had quite an interesting palette, and she's one of these people who, as a kid, she loved olives. She was the weirdo that loved olives. She loved pickled gherkins, still does. Um, she's always liked savory food. She loves vegetables. She doesn't really like chocolate that much, although she loves ice cream. But there's certain things that she's always been like really weird about. Now, something that she used to be really weird about was artichoke hearts. And she's now she used to turn her nose up at them all the time, hated them. Was like, no, don't feed me those, like this. And I was always just like, I don't understand why you don't like them because you like olives. Suddenly, she's fucking obsessed with artichoke hearts. Can't get enough of them. If I buy a jar and we make pizzas at home, we'll buy supermarket pizza. I love artichoke hearts too. She will literally be like, she snaffled the rest of the jar that we had in the fridge the other day, basically, because she bought herself like some pizza, like supermarket jobby, kind of pepperoni, whatever it was. And she slathered it with artichoke hearts. This is a fine example of what I'm saying here. Like, sometimes you can think you don't like something, and actually, if you give yourself the the space and the permission to try something again, you can find, because we are constantly changing, evolving, and so on and so forth. Sometimes the things you thought you hated are actually things you love. This feels like a very kind of pertinent subject for this week because of the fact that we are definitely in a time where there's a lot of flux, there's a lot of change going on. I'm not talking about in general terms from the point of view of like the timeline is doing this and the collective is doing this. There are lots of different timelines for the collective. We live in a multiverse, there's all sorts of things going on. I feel like this is a subject for a whole different video that I could talk about. I'm not going to bring into this one because it'll get far too long winded. But essentially, it's really, really important to understand the fact that you do actually get the pick, the choice of what it is that you experience in life. The whole thing about, the subject matter of dynamic intention as a business, in the name. Like, what is your intention? What is it that you're aiming at? What is it that you like? What is it that you desire? Do you even know? The reason why I'm saying this, like, for those of you watching right now, for those of you who are going to watch the recording after the event, as it were, because this is obviously going out as a live stream right now, it's important to understand the fact that you are not the persona that you think you are, that society has convinced you that you are, and so on and so forth. You are the awareness behind the persona. Your persona can change. The only thing that's important when it comes to authenticity is being honest about how you're feeling in the moment and being true to yourself, and only doing those things which actually speak to you, light your soul up, and so on and so forth. And if you don't know what those things are, then it's time to. It's funny. I want to say fuck around and find out. It's funny saying that because everyone always uses that phrase basically in terms of it being a negative thing. But I'm like, go back to being a kid, play, understand that, like, by playing with things, by trying things out, you are going to find out far more about yourself in this moment. Like, that kind of that energy of experimentation. I'm experimenting with this, I'm experimenting with that, I'm going to try this out and see how I feel about it. Not like I'm trying to make this happen kind of energy, but I'm going to try this thing out here and see how it feels, see whether I like it or not. Okay, see whether it lights my fire, rather than having this preconception that you're not going to like it. And this is something I see, like, anyone who has trauma in their background, who is dealing with that, has a tendency to start equating what they're going to like now with their previous trauma, because some part of them is still stuck in that trauma. It's important to understand that as you release the trauma, you are going to, like, your persona will shift. Okay, as you shift trauma, your persona shifts. You become a different person, quite literally. You become a different person. The things that you might have been scared to do suddenly become things that you actually are excited about doing. It's important to give yourself the leeway for that. It's important to allow yourself to open up to possibility and to allow yourself to dream, and not just dream, but actually take steps towards the things that you're wanting to experience that you've been daydreaming about, rather than just leaving them as some kind of pipe dream type of ideal, right? And it's funny because I've got this release and surrender card just came out, and essentially we come back to this thing of surrendering. Like, when people talk about surrender, people think about it as like waving a flag and giving up, and in actual fact, no, surrender is a very active process. Surrender, I was literally, it was 11:11 on the clock as I was wanting to say this, and it's now past 11:11. Basically, the whole thing with surrender is that when you truly surrender, what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to channel your own higher consciousness, and you're allowing that to come through. And quite often, your higher consciousness has a much bigger picture idea than little human you might have, or might be even open to. But like, the more that you can surrender into listening to this, excuse me, higher guidance that's coming through, and act on that, basically, as you feel it coming through, and as you feel this sort of pull, sort of, you'll feel it, it sort of comes in, and it's when it reaches the point of like getting to your heart space, it starts heart space in your solar plexus, it starts pulling you forwards. It's an interesting one, because if you look at human design stuff, particularly for manifesting generators, they talk about like the defined sacral center and the solar plexus or emotional authority. Like, you've got like these different emotional authority centers, and you will actually start to recognize, for you specifically, that you have a central point in your body that's basically central for you, that pulls you forwards into the things you actually want to do. Where it gets fucked up is where you've got resistance to that. So on the one hand, you're being pulled forwards, but then there's some part of you like going, no, putting the brakes on. Okay, so what I want to say to you this week is that it's important to excuse me, I've got a bit of a cough at the moment, as you can probably tell. It's important to actually take the time to really sit down and explore emotionally and mentally, before you do anything else. Explore emotionally and mentally what things might be exciting to you, might be joyful for you, that you maybe haven't done before, and allow yourself that time to daydream about things. Okay, and then start to set intentions based on that, rather than just repeating the same old Groundhog Day loops. And it's interesting because I'm saying this. Oh, excuse me. um, there's a protocol actually that I don't sell at the moment on my Podia site, which I'm getting the nudge I need to actually put up. So I may well be doing that in the next few days. Well, that's by another thing altogether. Yeah, I think maybe I've reached the end point of being able to do this today because of the cough. I will be back next week. But yes, I was going to say, basically, the Groundhog Day loop thing. Okay, if you are feeling like you have been living in a version of Groundhog Day for a really long time, it's because of the fact that there are trauma loops that need to be dissolved, and it's because it's time for you to start looking at what it is that you desire to create and experience instead, and then looking at the ways in which you can do that. So the main message for this week: give yourself time to daydream. Okay. Understand that whatever you choose to focus your attention on, the universe is taking that as being that you love that thing, so we'll deliver more of it. And that's part of the reason why we have Groundhog Day loops on stuff that form in the first place. Understand that if you're not happy with what you're experiencing at the moment, it's time to actually start shifting up your focus, quite apart from anything else, especially with the words that you speak. Okay. If you're someone who has a tendency to complain and moan about stuff quite a lot, understand that you will always be given more stuff to complain about. Like it's a vicious circle. It's like ever decreasing circles. Actually, the more that you can understand and take responsibility and accountability for the things coming out of your mouth, and understand it's your responsibility to start shifting your focus, start shifting your energy, to work with the people that can help you to do that, to literally focus your attention and intention on the things you desire to create and desire to experience rather than all the stuff that you don't, the better your life's going to get. And having said all of that, I'm going to love and leave you all for now. Mwah. So sorry about the coughing. When you see me next week, I won't be doing this.